All right.
So I'd like to start with the ad first.
Okay.
'Cause that's what I started with.
Do you like action, drama, good storytelling? The equivalent of two slabs of meat being shaken in a plastic tub turning into a soap opera? Well, boy howdy do I have just the thing for you. Pro wrestling. It's jam-packed with blood, tears, and drama galore. Maybe pro wrestling is just the thing in your life that you never knew that you needed. So hey, come on down to my website and listen close to my presentation. Hey, you might be interested in something you didn't know.
Alright, so as you can see there, I'm going to be talking about pro wrestling. And I know some of you are going to be like, pro wrestling is fake, why would we ever want to listen about that? But that's why I would like to tell you a little bit of a story. So when I was young, about first grade or something like that, I used to watch wrestling all the time. Well, I still do. But I would always watch it with my stepdad every Monday and Thursday. It was the best time of my life. But there was one difference between then and now. I thought that wrestling was real. I thought it was real to the point that I would always cheer on the good guys, boo the bad guys, and wonder, why would the bad guys ever do something so mean as hurt the good guys this much? But then one day, a certain problem arose when a friend of mine said to me, why do you watch this? You know it's fake, right? As a typical first grade self, I just said, man, you're lying. And then that was it. I just walked home and forgot about it for a while. But this seed of doubt had been planted into my mind from that point on. I kind of looked a bit closer into wrestling and saw certain things change. Like maybe a move didn't connect, or there was a kick that happened but it didn't hit them and they fell backwards anyways. And I started to think to myself, oh my god, is wrestling actually fake? For a while I went through the spiel where I hated wrestling suddenly. I was like, it's fake, they lied to us, how dare they do this? They pretend it's real when it's not. And then my dad just one day told me to shut up and sit down. He told me, we're going to watch a wrestling match, and hey, if you like it, we're going to start watching wrestling again. If you don't, then you don't have to watch anymore. You can go back to hating it. What he sat me down to watch was Undertaker versus Mankind, Hell in a Cell, and that changed my life. If you go to the next slide, please. That match made me realize one thing. I thought to myself, wait, isn't it fake? How could he do this without getting hurt? My dad then said to me, sure, yeah, it's fake. They still get a hell of a lot hurt. And then I suddenly started liking wrestling again. But I wasn't quite sure why. I thought to myself, why did I suddenly start like wrestling after just watching one simple match? And that's what I'm going to talk about today. The reason that people like wrestling is because of the characters, the action, and the storytelling. First, we're going to need to start out with the characters themselves. There are two major types of wrestlers in wrestling. There are the heels, which are the bad guys, the ones who cheat, and the faces, who are the good guys, the underdogs. While those are the two main versions of wrestlers, there are a significant amount of wrestlers that go under those two categories. You could actually go to my website, because right now I'm going to be talking about a couple of the different wrestlers in wrestling and their kind of impact on wrestling as a whole. Go to the wrestlers tab at the top. Going through a couple of the wrestlers here, we've got The Undertaker on the left, who is the dead man. His whole shtick was that he had won 21 straight matches at the greatest pay-per-view of all time without ever losing. That was his thing. He was always a big draw. There's John Cena. I think pretty much everyone should know him at this point. He's extremely popular, not just in wrestling, but he's also become an actor. He's known for memes. And here's Steve Austin, who was very popular for his badass, no-can-do attitude. He just did whatever he wanted, and that really drove people to like him. If you could scroll down. We've got Hulk Hogan with his amazing handlebar mustache. his whole shtick was to rip off his shirt and say, "Let me tell you something, brother." It was very popular back then. I know, it might
Well
be
done.
surprising. But it was very popular back then. He was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Ric Flair, who was the one to hold the longest amount of titles, the most titles for the longest amount of time, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, yes, that Dwayne, the actor, he was once a wrestler. He was actually very hated for a while, but then became very popular as a wrestler. If you could scroll down. Macho Man Randy Savage, he was extremely popular back in the day. His promos, while sometimes were very hard to understand because his talking was a bit weird, he was very much known for his "oh yeah" that he would always say when he was wrestling. Charlotte Flair, who is the daughter of Ric Flair, she's kind of trying to follow in his footsteps to become the greatest women's wrestler of all time. And Mick Foley, the man who you saw go through and off of a cage in the wrestling match. He is a certified nutcase. He has had concussions, bruises, a tooth go through his lip into his nose. He has had a lot of punctures, and I don't know why he kept wrestling as long as he did. Now, if we could go back to my presentation there. So there are all these characters in wrestling, and obviously a lot of the characters aren't real. There's no literal dead man who shoots lightning from his fingertips, and there's no brother of his who is an orphan who burned down an orphanage who became a wrestler. While obviously these characters aren't real, there are certain wrestlers that will obviously stay in character. Like, for example, Kevin Owens here. He's a heel, or the bad guy. He will always stay in character whenever a fan tries to, annoy him or something. If you could play the video and kind of skip ahead to maybe 20 seconds. So, obviously, as he said there, you'll have fun being a virgin forever. So, he was obviously staying in character there. I don't imagine that he would say that normally to someone, even if they were booing him like that. Well, maybe he would, but he obviously stays in character a lot. There's a lot of times where he'll do something like that, where he'll insult a fan while he's wrestling, or he'll talk about how they make maybe $16,000 a year while he makes 6 digits. Now, obviously characters are an extremely important part to wrestling, but another very important part that the fans love is the action. The action is very important in wrestling because if there's no action, it's just a normal story, and people really wouldn't care as much because it would seem kind of boring. So if you could go to the next slide. So, obviously, action, it's wrestling, it's fake. While a lot of the moves don't connect and they don't really hurt each other because they're going to need to wrestle again the next day and keep doing it for 365 days a year, they do a lot of crazy spots which really hurt. And, for example, the first video there. So,
Why wouldn't they do that?
so So obviously, as you can see, they go through a lot of crazy spots that would, significantly hurt their bodies. But they put on these crazy spots because it makes it interesting. If they don't have something big to have happen, then the fans would find it kind of boring and they'd be like, nah, whatever, it's just a normal basic match. Now, while they have all those crazy spots that really hurt, they always sometimes have to have some kind of funny or entertaining spots to make it so that the fans, kind of laugh, they get engaged more into the match, and then they find it interesting, like in our second video here. So, obviously they need to have some kind of funny spots in there to make it so that the fans can get interested again, because besides that point there, that match was kind of boring. If it wasn't for that, then it wouldn't really be that memorable. But they add those kind of interesting moments into there because it gets the fans more interested. It gets them to come back to it more. And that's what the fans love, is that the WWE, while fake, can still put on such amazing moments like this. While action is such an important part of wrestling, there is another significantly more important part of wrestling, which is storylines. Because WWE, first and foremost, is a media of storytelling. It needs to tell a story. If it doesn't, then it's just needless action and nothing else happens. So that's why the WWE, they focus primarily on the wrestling and story, and then they'll go into more of, the action. They need to have the story involved, or it's just nothing. So, the interesting thing about wrestling and in the stories of wrestling is that the first thing they come up with before anything else is who's going to win. That's the first and foremost thing that they try to figure out, is who's going to win the match. What the fans are going to like most, what they find the most interesting. That's the most primary part. After that, then they'll play it by ear and kind of figure out what the match is going to be like. And after that point, if they see that the fans liked it, they say, hey, let's keep this going, let's go with another similar match and see if the fans like it still. And if they don't, they try to switch things up and add something new to it. Well, speaking about storytelling, that's why we're going to be going into my next slide here, which is the interactive portion. The entire class here is going to create a wrestling match/storyline. So, first and foremost, I would like to have 2 volunteers to be the wrestlers of the WWE.
I'll do it.
All right.
Doug is up there also. Doug, go.
Yeah, let's go, Doug.
Wait, who am I fighting?
It doesn't matter.
You're not actually going to be fighting, don't worry.
Yeah, remember, Doug, it's all fake.
I have a question. How do you think Smash is supposed to be done for
It's not very good.
Yeah.
It's really not very good.
Where's my steel foldable chair? Do I get one of those?
Can I buy this
He might buy something new.
Hey, that's too confliction, Doug.
really big?
Alright, so obviously you guys aren't allowed to hurt each other because then there'd be a little bit of a problem. I know, it's real sad. So, first what we need to figure out is who the wrestlers are going to be. Here's your card. You may not look at it yet. Here's your card. It's very well drawn.
You can't look at it.
Alright.
I'm looking at the logo. Thank you.
Alright, now you can flip it over. You may not. Yeah, okay. Well, sure. Who are you?
Nah, bro.
Gobbledygook.
You are the gobbledygook. If you would like to go to the next page.
Literally just a giant turkey.
WCW wrestling?
He is literally just a giant turkey suit. He is the gobbledygook.
This isn't even WWE.
No, shush. We're just acting like it is. All right, and you are.
Shockmaster.
You are the Shockmaster. All right. So
I see you
we
there.
are going to look at the video of who the Shockmaster is real quickly. Oh yeah, skip to 110. Alright, we're good there. Alright, so.
Alright then.
This is the worst joke ever.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. Alright, so you are the Shockmaster and you are the Gobbledygook. So, this side of the class here, you guys are going to be the story writers, and you guys are going to be the audience. So, the story writers here, I want to ask you guys, who is going to be the good guy and who's going to be the bad guy?
Well, am I good or bad?
Good. Shockmaster.
Well, yeah, he's wearing a stormtrooper helmet.
Yeah, this is him.
Let's switch it up.
Evil.
Oh, we can start with
Sure. Alright, so what is it you want him to be, the good guy or the bad guy?
Good
Gobbledygook.
guy. Good guy. Good guy.
Alright, good guy is the turkey suit, Gobbledygook, and the bad guy is the glitter stormtrooper.
Just makes sense.
It's a glitter stormtrooper.
That sounds good.
Alright, so now that we've figured out who's the good guy and who's the bad guy, I would like to ask the story writers, since it's the first thing, who's going to be the winner? Bad guy. Alright, so the Shockmaster.
Damn right.
Alright, so the Shockmaster is going to be the winner of this match. And so I will need 2 more volunteers to be their promo writers. Any 2 people, if you would like.
What do they do? I want Jackson.
All you need to do is make a 1-sentence like insult for the other person.
Wait, we need some rednecks to do. We need Cooper and Drew. We need the rednecks to run WWE.
My boys. Go up there. Go up
Yeah.
there.
It's to be involved whole.
This is wrestler's wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is wrestling right here. Alright, who do you want to be the promo writer for?
Yeah, you're right.
Alright, so
I get the mad mullet man.
alright, so your guys' job is for the wrestlers, you need to create just a 1-sentence basic like insult for the other person, since that's pretty much what promos are. You're just insulting the other person. So if you could just make that.
You got it. Dance around this.
Alright, so we're gonna do this.
Let's go.
I'm a jerk.
We're gonna be spinning along because I've seen that I'm kind of running out of time. We're gonna be speeding up a little bit.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm just gonna throw something out there. It's gonna be classic. It's
Alright,
gonna be a great one, man.
Alright. Alright, are you guys ready?
I guess.
Alright. So, since he is the good guy, usually they will start off with their promo, so let it on. Alright.
We're gonna roast you, turkey.
Alright. Well, now that the promos are out of the way, that means that they are going to have their match. You're not actually going to have your match, obviously, because you guys can't hurt each other. Since, you know, there'd be a little bit of a problem. So, as already established, we know that the Shockmaster is going to be the victor of this match.
Yeah.
So, now that the Shockmaster has become the victor, I would like to ask the audience, how did you guys feel about the match? How did you feel about the promos? Are you happy with the winner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So that means, yes, you guys are happy. So what the WWE would do is that they would kind of have a similar match. They would have another similar match, maybe switch up a couple things, but it would still primarily be the same. If the audience didn't like the match, then we would have a 3rd wrestler come up. If I could have anyone at all come up. You won't really have to do anything this time. You can just come up.
Come on, Tristan.
Anyone?
Tristan,
anyone
move.
else?
Tristan.
Yeah.
Alright, Robert.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright.
Wrestling?
Here is your card. Who are you?
I am Perry Saturn.
Alright, you are Perry Saturn. Let's go on to the next slide. You are Perry Saturn. You are in love with a mop named Moppy.
That's so fun.
I don't know.
Alright, so since he has joined into the match, again, do you think that he should be a good guy or a bad guy?
Bad guy.
Bad guy.
Bad guy. Okay.
Bad guy.
So that means that he would be more leaning towards the Shockmaster's side.
Yeah.
But let's say that it's a 3-way between the 3. Yeah, I know it's a bad way to say that, but a better way to say it is a triple threat match. Let's say it's a triple threat match. It's all three of them are fighting each other. Who do you think is going to be the winner?
Shockmaster.
Shockmaster. Shockmaster.
Just going like
Yeah, you do it. Come on. They need to see Perry in all of his glory.
Harry the
All right, so let's just say that the up-and-comer Perry is the victor of the match. And so sad, but it's to say that the Gobbledygook was sadly injured in the match, and he has to stay out for a couple months. Like an actual,
He broke a wing.
yeah, an actual injury, because those do happen quite often in wrestling. So let's say that he was injured in his match and he cannot continue for a long time. So now let's skip ahead a little bit, and let's go forward to say that it is finally time for the Gobbledygook to make his amazing return to the WWE, and he finally comes in to reclaim his place as the top good guy in wrestling, to maybe even get the WWE Championship title. And let's say that during that time that he was gone, many things happened. There were fights between Perry Saturn and the Shockmaster. Let's say that the Shockmaster fell down again. Anything like that. Many things have happened during the time that he was gone. And when he came back, it's finally time for his redemption, and he can finally. Okay, so let's just say that a lot of feuds have gone on, and a lot of things have happened, even past the point where he came back and made his debut, or made his return. So, how long do you guys think that it was until he came back?
couple months.
like 3 months.
3 months.
1 year.
Well, if
I
it's a
said
broken
5.
arm, I'm figuring like 3 or 4 or 5 maybe.
Alright, so yeah, a few months. So, after he came back and started wrestling again, let's skip ahead even more, a few years into the future. All of this time, he still had storylines going, he still had feuds, he's had his own character arc going for him for years to come. And every single time that there was a match, what we had just done pretty much has happened every single time, where people would figure out the story, they would figure out the wrestlers who would win, and all that for years. And remember that it's not just one person. There's maybe 25, 50 that are going on at once. That all of these storyline writers in the back are going through this arduous task of hell, pretty much, to create a story for the fans to enjoy. That's pretty much what I want to leave you guys on, is the fact that if you see wrestling as just something fake, or if you haven't heard of wrestling before at all, I want you to not see wrestling as a fake fight. I want you to see it as a story, because first and foremost, wrestling is that. It's a story. The fans care about wrestling because of the story. They care about the characters. And sometimes they care about the action itself, but that's just the extra bonus. WWE is pretty much just as much of a story as any TV show or movie. And maybe it's just exactly that. It's its own TV show. And that's it. Thank you.
Alright, guys, come give me a truck, we're on KO. Look at that.
I don't know what to think of.
Good job.
Jesus Christ.
I got real nervous by the end there. Completely lost.